So in this lecture, we're going to talk more about HTML, but also more about how we use it with Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to do New, Folder, and as we've said, Visual Studio has a very folder is a project-oriented structure. At least that's the way I think about it. So this folder is going to become a Visual Studio project. I'll right-click on it, and since I enabled Open with Code from this context menu, when I installed Visual Studio Code, I get this choice. If you didn't enable that on the checkbox, then you won't have that choice. There may be a way to add it to the context menu after you install, but you'll need to find out about that if you want to use it this way. Otherwise, you can open up Visual Studio Code and open a folder within that command window. So here we have it, and this is what a blank project looks like. Okay, so over here is my normal Explorer window. It's empty because there's no files in it. So let's create a file right here. And I'm going to call this index.html. The file name is actually very important here. And we'll talk about what index, the special meaning of the file name index. In HTML, the file extension is also important. Visual Studio Code includes a feature called emit. And emit is a little bit like IntelliSense in that it pops up with help. With IntelliSense, it depends on the editor context when it pops up. For example, if you're using Eclipse and you type in a Java object, you hit the dot operator and up pops the public members of the class that object was based on. Emit is more text oriented. It doesn't need the context. So I'll just type in HTML there, and here I have choices here. Emit has been triggered by the letters HTML with no further context. I pick HTML5, and what I'll get is HTML boilerplate, HTML5 boilerplate. Since we're going to be learning HTML5, that is version 5 of HTML, that's what you want to do. Now the next thing I'm going to do depends on a Visual Studio extension. So down on the left hand side are these various buttons, and here is the extensions. This is called the marketplace in Eclipse. So what I'm going to use is Live Server, and I already have it installed, but you can search for this as well in the extensions and install it and run it here. So Live Server is what I'm using. There's several things that several plugins or extensions you can use for Visual Studio Code that do what I'm about to show you here. So that's installed and running that extension. I right click on my index.html file and I click on the command Open with Live Server. And this will open up that HTML file in a browser. Okay, I'll dock this to the left here, and so in Windows I can dock this by doing that. So then I end up with the text on the right and the browser on the left. I'll enter in some text here now in the browser. And just saving the file should make it show up in the browser. So that's what's nice about Live Server, is that as I edit and save, I get to see the results in the browser right away without refreshing the browser. It just does it on its own. So, a little bit about the nature of HTML here is appropriate. The browser, when it parses HTML, is actually very forgiving of the tag language. That is, it tolerates errors and recovers from them. Now, that can create some ambiguities because as it recovers from error, it has some room for interpretation there. That's why the Java compiler would never tolerate a syntax error. It just reports the syntax. The compiler, in that case, reports the syntax error back to the developer and demands that the developer fix the syntax error. It doesn't fix up the Java syntax error for the programmer, because that could create situations where it fixes up the syntax, but it also changes the semantics or the meaning of the programming language. And that happens with HTML too. I've seen web developers throughout my career just struggle with different browsers and their different interpretations of HTML, and a lot of that is rooted in the tolerance of browsers for sloppily constructed HTML. So I'm going to use show one other thing here. This is another item that I've added to Visual Studio, and let's properly structure this HTML here. So I'm going to put this within a paragraph tag that we talked about earlier, and also hopefully we can get this popping up here. All right. So on its own, the image is popping up again and offering me the paragraph tag. I select it, and there I have a paragraph tag. Doesn't do me much good yet because I wanted to surround the text "Hello World" with that tag, so I can cut it from here and paste it inside here. Okay, and I'll save it here. Okay, a little bit formatting change, but now our HTML is properly formatted. Let's talk a little bit about let's notice that initial white space there. Let's talk about a little bit more about white space in HTML. I'm going to take that "Hello World" and copy it. I actually want the entire line here. I'll copy it several times. Save it. Now notice the nature of white space in HTML. So this one white space character is meaningful. Notice it separates "hello" from "world." But after that, all the other white space is just consumed when the browser consumes the HTML and interprets it for the user. That we see on the left here, it squeezes the extra white space out. So beyond one space, white space becomes meaningless. So if we want different paragraphs out of this, we need to surround this with paragraph tags. Now, if you have a bunch of work to do of that nature, and it happens where you want it to select text and interpret it and surround it with tags, a little bit painful. Now, I have a keyboard shortcut that I'll show you how to do that makes this a lot nicer. So I'll select the text and select the first "Hello World" paragraph here, and I'll hit Control-Shift-9. Again, your Visual Studio won't do this because you don't have the keyboard shortcut, which I'm about to show you how to do. Now I hit this, and it surrounds my text, the content now, with the paragraph tag. Okay, so select more text, Control-Shift-9. Hit the paragraph tag. Oh, it's a little tricky to do it and talk about it at the same time. I went ahead and marked all the paragraphs, all the text with paragraph tags, and now when I save them, you can notice. So in order to get formatting, proper horizontal and vertical formatting in HTML, it's a matter of properly structuring your tags. So let's get to the keyboard shortcut that I've used to customize the behavior of Visual Studio. I'm going to go to Keyboard Shortcuts here in Preferences, Keyboard Shortcuts, and then one more step further, go to Open Keyboard Shortcuts. Okay. So here's my Control-Shift-F9. That's the key I decided to bind this shortcut to. And the command is already an emit command. Editor.emit.action wrap with abbreviation. When is this keyboard triggered or possible? When the editor has selection. So for this keyboard shortcut, I select the text, I hit Control-Shift-9, the key I defined for this, or bound to it, and then when the action that it takes is wrap with abbreviation. So that's essentially wrap with tag. Wrap this text, and then that text becomes the content of an HTML element. I'll share this with you, and we'll work it out in class as well. So that's starting with Visual Studio Project, again folder related. We have a little bit more about HTML and Live Server, which is a Visual Studio extension, and also this keyboard shortcut, which allows us to wrap some text. Let's put some. I'll actually use a different tag here. Select the text, Control-Shift-9, and I'll make this an H3, which will make this a heading element. And when I save it, you can see a heading element up there. All right. In the next lecture, we'll push forward our knowledge of HTML.